If you're sitting around being excited while waiting for Grayzone Warfare to launch its early access and want to listen to other people get excited and talk about the game, you've come to the right place. So a whole new type of video for me, so some rough edges are to be expected. A couple of us content creators got together and just had a chat about Grayzone Warfare, reacted to recent info drops, speculated a bit, and just had a good old time chatting about the game and the surrounding topics. The bookmarks will help a little bit, but we do jump around a bunch. I'd like to thank ShowRx for hosting this. If you're not already part of his Discord community and are really excited for Grayzone Warfare, I highly recommend joining it. He's extremely active in this space and is also very much worth subbing to as well. Now on with the video. There'll be temptations to say, like when I'm starting to speculate or just having my musings to like, oh, he's dropping hints or things like that. Like that's not the case. It's one of the things I do know things that probably the average person doesn't, but I've been asked to let people reveal them at their own pace, and I'm respecting that. So even if I'm speculating, I'm truly speculating, not none of that, nod, wink, wink. Oh yeah, speculation type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I wanted to kind of get that, stated out from the get-go. So
That's
that
good.
way, no one's gonna like assume I'm trying to drop information like on the sly or anything like that. Like if I know something and it's not something I'm allowed to say, I'll just say I'm not allowed to say that. Now, unfortunately, that might straight up give you an answer to something. And so in cases like that, I'm willing to bend a little bit and say I just don't know about it, as opposed to just going back on my word previously.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I wanted to get that out the way right there.
Because did you ever try to apply for their content thing?
Yes. I got into it a little bit late, so I did get the previous notice that you guys did as well.
Yeah.
So now I'm part of that. So it's fun. It's great. I'm just getting started with that, but that might be a moot point with like early access likely on the loom.
Yeah. I feel you. Okay. Yeah. So same thing with me, guys. You already know. There's stuff that I don't say, and when I do say stuff, it's because I don't know. So that's just kind of how it goes with this type of stuff. I'll say it one more time. If I do not know, I will have fun and kind of, guess. But if I do know, I try to avoid it. Y'all seen it in Twitch. Y'all seen it in here. In Discord, I'll just opt out because we got eyes watching. I've already been scolded a little bit with some stuff because the basic general rule of thumb is when you're in, you're not allowed to speculate anymore because like Gecko said, it's going to come off as, oh, and we don't want to ruin their timeline, if that makes sense. So I hope y'all can understand that. Well, yeah. Where do you want to begin? You want to start with the dev blog?
Wherever you want. I think a good spot would probably be the early access information, because that's kind of going to lead into the dev blog, I think.
All right. Do that. Go ahead.
I think it's interesting because I've gotten some reaction. I've seen some reactions off of this where some people are like, well, this is not really giving us anything new. Or they're maybe disappointed with the level of release of certain types of things for early access. Have you been kind of seeing similar reactions?
Yeah.
So like I got like just quick takes on those things right there, just to kind of put in perspective. Here is that.
Mm-hmm.
That right there was primarily for the people who are either disciplined enough or just like relaxed enough to just follow the game like on a wish list and then call it a day. So it's not for the people who are probably going to be in this chat right now, who are probably going to watch this video, who are probably going to be our followers or us, or who even know who we are, because they know all that stuff already.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people are like, well, there's nothing new, well, it wasn't really meant for you. And so that's for starters there. And the other one was kind of elaborating on what the early access is. It's like Rick kind of alluded to that in the interview when he said you're probably going to get a vanilla experience in early access. And it's like, well, they're really using it as an early access feel, which I feel like is really important for people to kind of set their expectations appropriately when they're going that way.
Yeah.
I thought that was smart of them to like just draw that line very firmly. This is what you should be expecting for early access. This is where we want to be for, release. I thought that was a good, set of, line that was drawn.
Yeah, that's what I think of when I see the game is, potential. There's a lot of things that are great, a lot of things that I think are going to be very successful and draw a lot of people to buy the game. But it's a long term. They said it over and over, a long term passion project. 5 to 7 years of building it, before getting it completely finished. So we have to set. That's why we do the hashtag mildly hyped. Like y'all need to set your expectations accordingly to that plan. I completely agree, and I've seen people kind of say, kind of both sides of the fence, and I'm here to tell you right now, it's in a lot of ways, I think it's great. I think it's going to, fit right in with, games like Tarkov, other first person shooters is going to be right up to par with them, but it is in no way, shape, form, or fashion, finished. And, with early access, you're going to be getting this crazy, amazing experience. Now they're going to build onto it over time. So those of y'all that kind of have your expectations too high, you need to adjust that a little bit and just know that it's going to be something that's a long-term project. Absolutely.
I think even the small parcel of information that we got regarding wipes, for example, like if anyone here is not aware, it's been stated openly that we're expected to have 6-month wipes, for like major patches, things like that. That little bit of information tells you a whole lot, because that means you're looking at minimum 2 wipes. So you're looking at a minimum of 1 year of early access. I'd be willing to bet, if I had to bet over under, I'd probably be willing to bet about 2 years or so. And it seems like a lot, but if you really think about what they're building and what they're expected to build, not really. We're just allowed to be along for the ride. They could just be, hey, we're not doing anything, so you don't get to see anything. At least we're along for the ride.
Yeah, they need people to play it. I mean, straight up.
100%, Mango. 100%.
With their success in mobile, this is kind of a take that a lot of people aren't talking about. With their success in mobile, it kind of comes off. I don't know if you've experienced it, but when you're talking to the devs, man, there isn't a money issue. There's not. They're not trying to do a cash grab. They're not trying to. They don't really care about the price of the game. They have producers and things like that, but it's not a cash grab. So they're not thinking in terms of like, hey, early access, how much can we make, and then put that towards their game. They've already kind of planned for that. If they don't sell anything, if they sell a lot, they don't really care, because they're in it for the long haul. So that's those are some conversations that I've had with them, and like it does come off. It's great to hear, because you get this energy of like, okay, we're set. We've had a lot of success. We want to give this PC thing a solid run, and we don't, we're not really in it for the money. We're in it for the passion of it. So that's very different than, and I mean, I know there's some games out there that do the same thing, but it's very different to hear, where they have to have it be successful right off the ground, and so I'm very happy to hear that, and I think people should kind of think about that too.
Oh, for sure. And I think just looking at the chat regarding what Mango said, that's super important. I think that's one of the biggest advantages of getting in early access, is because I've made a video on this regarding why the original game I started playing, The Cycle Frontier, in terms of why it died in a lot of ways. And that's the video is oriented at why it died, but rather that's the subject of the video. But being in part of early access, it gives us such a prime window to give feedback on, to help steer the game during a time where you can actually make those changes. Like, it's like fast forward, like say 3 or 4 years, you're going to be giving out, feedback that on things that are basically set in stone at that point. And so right now you're like, hey, I don't like this part of it. Voice it, to say, hey, you know what, this is right here. Give some suggestions. That's going to be super useful for them at this stage. And so even if you're coming into it like, hey, I'm not happy with this decision, I'm not happy with that one, like, okay, well, you're part of early access. We still have the time to change that, to steer it.
Right. No, that's the thing, and that's I mean, I haven't been, close to a lot of developers. I've been with a few, and I've talked to a few, but the type of energy they give with the project, like I said, in early access it's very unique. You can just tell they love it. And yeah, I know Yeti asked a question about the different. I know you were referring to Tarkov, like the tiers, the what is it? Edge of Dark. What is it? The fucking edition with the bigger stash. Whatever the fuck he's talking about. Yeah, we can't discuss that. They haven't decided. But yeah, EOD, Edge of Darkness. Yeah.
I think they covered. I think they covered just the early access and the release price difference. That's pretty much what's been open.
That price will be different.
Yeah, it's cheaper at early access than it will be in release. That's pretty much all we know at this point.
So did you get to go to Loot Fest, or you said you were That was after.
Unfortunately, I was trying to plan it to leave to do that because I know how strict these schedules can be. But it
Yeah.
ends up being that he had time to kill, and I was in the area, so I'm like, you know what? And I had family in the area, so like, well, if you're willing to wait till after Lou Fest, we could just do it at my hotel room. And I'm like, shoot, let's do it. Makes it easier.
Yeah.
So we just did it in his hotel room, super chill. I will make this side comment here is that it's refreshing because I've worked for two different video game companies before. It's refreshing to see someone clearly who's very excited and very proud to talk about his game to the point where like they'll let stuff slip when they're probably not supposed to. And same thing happened with Mara's interview with riiiight, that he pointed that out too. And I gotta tell you, it from someone who's been behind the curtain and seeing how the sausage is made, that's not a given, right? It's
Hmm.
not uncommon, but it's not a given either. So it's refreshing to like be excited about a game where the devs are also excited about the game.
Yep. Absolutely. So yeah, so you got to talk to him and do the interview. That was good. I was jealous. I was like, man, I wanted to go, but I couldn't go out there, man. I got too many responsibilities here.
Oh yeah, for
It's
me it
kind
was
of
not
last minute.
that long of a drive. For you, it would have been pretty
Yeah,
long of a
it's a
drive.
flight. I got to fly probably. Um, so the dev blog, the ballistics. What did you think about all that?
Man, I'm gonna sound like a sourpuss, man, because I was just like meh. Because I'm like I felt like it was a lot of flex. It was like,
That's
man,
what.
this looks super cool. This
Yeah,
looks super
I
cool,
said
but
that
at
in
the
my
same time,
video.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean that's you said that in your video,
yeah,
but the
yeah.
whole with the ricochets, things like that. But at the end of the day, I'm like, well, I was just like, well, how does this really change from like a standard? Okay, well, this is hitboxes and there's your HP, things like that. Like, it doesn't really change too much
Hmm.
of how the game is actually played. But it's really cool, that it's the first time you see this in a first person shooter. Spoiler, it's been in vehicle shooters for quite a long time.
Hmm.
Looking at World of Tanks, you're looking at War Thunder, that kind of in-depth, deflection and angles, things like that have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's certainly the first time I've heard of a first person shooter having it. The one thing that I did see that I was kind of really intrigued by was the fact that the bullets can deflect off of helmets. Because I was kind of wondering about that in terms of just like, well, if you want to have a headshot, which is reasonable in this kind of game,
Hmm.
what's the point of running a helmet? And then I'm like, oh, they're
Yep.
actually going to have realistic helmets. Oh, that's cool.
Hmm. That's the thing with Tarkov is like I'm known for it, and like that people I play with always make fun of me. I just always wear the boonie hat. I'm like, I'm not like, it gets to a point where like it doesn't matter. You'll get head eyes. The helmet's not going to work in the first place. It does here and there, but like an actual ricochet deflection like that, with especially the amount of AI, and maybe the lower tier ammunition that they're going to have, absolutely viable. I'll probably be running a helmet often. So I was happy to see that too. But I agree with you. I mean, just the physics of it and how it's all developed. It's not really, you can make it a lot simpler, I guess, and kind of streamline it. But I do appreciate it. I do appreciate the physics, everything that they put into it. I don't think it's going to be that insane where like you're going to be killing your teammates. There's going to, you got to pay attention to where you're shooting. But yeah, I think it's more, just they're showing what it is and how they built it, but it's not really crazy, application for the game. I completely agree.
Yeah, like good solid bones, good solid like infrastructure, and that's really cool to see. But at the end of the day, it's like I'm sitting here wondering, like, okay, well, aside from the random ricochet possibly hitting a teammate that I probably shouldn't have been shooting past anyways, but maybe I felt like I was desperate enough to a situation to do it. How's this really going to affect how I play? And I kind of left kind of meh, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and and I'm sure it took a really long time and a whole lot of work to get that done. But at the same time, it doesn't change the way I feel. So I kind of feel bad about it. But hey, it is what it is.
Yep. The weather. Oh yeah. So yeah. Uh, if half of the shit floods and like people just deflect, nah, that would be cool to watch. But yeah, it's not gonna have like any, like you said, game application where you're using it. But
Oh,
absolutely
the trick
cool.
shots though. The
Yeah, the
trick
trick
shots that are
shots and
going to
shit.
happen. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Yeah, Hayes, ask the questions, man. We might be able to. I'll
Yeah,
go
I
back.
saw that. Hey, he pointed out that they had it in Arma. for quite a while. Excuse my ignorance. Armor wasn't really a thing for me in terms of just wanting to play. Like I spent enough time in the army. The army, felt like work to me at that point. So I played it for a little bit, but not as much as I probably should have.
Yeah. I gotta play it. They getting on me. I gotta try it. They got the server now. I have to. So I might be doing that this week. So yeah, the ricochet. The one of my favorite things about the whole devlog thing was the ammo weight with the or affecting the recoil. So magazine weight.
Oh yeah.
Thought
I've
that
been
was
seeing some
awesome.
reactions regarding that. It's kind of. I think I like this one. I'm not sure how up to date you are in terms of the Reddit and Discord over there, but this is one guy who was this comment. It was thought it was kind of funny where said he wanted more realistic kick to weapons.
Yeah.
And people showed him the video. I think it was your video that they linked, but it was essentially for the video demonstrating the new stuff, right? It's like, yeah, it looked a little too smooth. I'm like, it's literally as realistic as you're gonna get, man.
Yep.
It's like, well, isn't kick enough? It's like, well, you want it more gamey then, so you know what you want.
Yep.
I thought that was kind of funny.
And that's what I think. Like shooters, especially if they're going to go for like a realism aspect, the gun doesn't. I mean, especially like the smaller rounds, right? Like they don't. The gun doesn't move. If you're like a trained operator, right? You know, like you're a trained individual that can handle the firearm. Like these weapons don't like go crazy. So like I was excited to see kind of the blip with the lens, and I was excited to hear the recoil change with the weight. I think that was, you might see a little bit of difference, but at the end of the day, like when you see them shooting into or like at the firing rate, it's controllable, and that's real life accurate, man. Like people who are trained in that, like if they're going to be PMCs, right, they can shoot a fucking gun. So I've always, now I understand with like arcade shooters and stuff like that having the recoil for like a skill gap type of thing, but if you're going for the realism thing, yeah, the gun doesn't move much,
For sure. And I think the skill gap in Gray Zone Warfare won't be so much about like the mechanics of landing your shots. It's more about decision making.
Yep.
So it's like if you start that fight in a good position, it's probably because you already had that intel, you already picked up on where they were, you already got your positions, you got the first shots off. Like that mechanics of you shooting better than them is gonna mean not a whole lot unless you're the second person to fire, which case you're already starting from behind.
Yeah.
But the one thing I actually probably can comment on, because you can see it in the trailers too. I just didn't notice it until after. But one thing I really loved attention to detail. This is gonna sound super weird for anyone who's never been in the service, but it's the trash laying around. Just the trash bags and just the trash just laying around everywhere here and there. Like, okay, if you're looking at a desolate type situation like that, like it's not going to be crystal clear. It's not going to be clean. It's like it looks lived in. It looks like desolate. It looks like it has it, man.
Oh yeah.
You know what I hope for? I hope for boat evacs. That's what I'm hoping for. Because then I can actually yell that, on like VoIP or like maybe on megaphone if I can get one in the game and be like, who's gonna carry the boats?
Different variations of enemy AI. How many? I don't know how many, but there are different ones. Yeah.
I think confirmed in the interview. There's the usual bandits, but then there's also like newer enemies which are confirmed to not be part of the EA. But basically like the more centralized where the centralized area, I forget what he call it, is Ground Zero. Ground Zero. There's going to be other enemies that are essentially the old military leftovers of what the country used to have. They're kind of like still hanging around. So they're basically pros. So they have their own armor, they have their own military style, they have their own tactics, things like that. And so I know some people are a little disappointed with saying that it's only going to come out with 8 weapons, but like if you have like legitimately 400 different like parts that you can customize, and like you said with the dev blog, you saw just the M4 or AR platform had a couple of different picks we saw with different variations. So like that's gonna be plenty for you to play around with.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, just in the dev blog, the 2 M4s they built, vastly different.
Exactly. So you can play a lot with it.
Yep.
In regards to what the Yeti had asking about the hauling teammates, I have personally made that suggestion a while ago on the Discord, and I think because of what we know about the medical system, in regards to like the coma and like transferring blood and field surgery, things like that, like 100% needs to be done. Be able to move or even drag teammates.
So the next thing on that, so that was customization, recoil, the ballistics. So I guess we can move on to because this is going to be speculation to raw gameplay footage. Do you think it's going to be long, or do you think it'll be something short, some bullshit like trailer thing?
It's gonna matter entirely based on what the powers that be in terms of who makes that kind of decision and what they want, how they want to roll it out. For me, if it were me, right? If it were me, 100% speculation, and this is terms of like me spending time doing YouTube and things like that in terms of like what I think the audience would appreciate the most. Because everyone right now is like, I want gameplay, I want gameplay, I want gameplay, right? And for me, I would actually like cut up a full raid from beginning to end,
Yeah,
right? Like key moments, kind of hype up little things, tension, things like that. Just kind of like make a good old trailer, but from a raid from beginning to end to like I'm getting my stuff ready, to I'm getting dropped off, going through the raid, and then going through some tension and some firefights, whatever it is, maybe some medical to go along with that if you can. And then like, exactly what Moth is saying, full quest raw gameplay. But like, not so much that it allows people to like nitpick things,
yeah. I don't think they should do
because
like a
people will
full
do that.
30-minute. Like, yeah, I don't, because there's a lot of walking involved. There's a lot of slow moments, but I mean, yeah,
For
cut it
sure.
up 10 minutes, something like that, of like the action, like the loop, basically. I think
Yeah,
that
for
would be
me,
solid.
I would go that route personally. Whether or not it's going to happen that way, not my decision. So who knows?
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know about that either. uh, so they have confirmed. I mean, I think y'all were talking. Somebody in here was talking or asking in their Discord if Q1 was still a go. Here's the thing, man. Timmy Tenders, or is it Tender, whatever his name is. I didn't like what he put out, dude. I thought he was gonna get in trouble. At the end of his video, he talked about a delay.
Oh,
I have heard no ounce. I mean, nothing about a delay. And if they were gonna do a delay, I think it would have happened by now. And the fact that they confirmed a few days ago in Discord that everything is still on pace for Q1.
I think unfortunately with the nature of YouTube, and when anyone who's done it for even a little bit amount of time can confirm, it's like um, thumbnails are it's a good way to do an integrity check.
Yeah,
Because like it's like, how do I put it? It's like I would love to put out a video that says, "Hey, I worked really hard on this. I think you're going to find some value in it. I respect your time, so I'm trying to nail it down as what I can." And who knows, make a comment and contribute a little bit and let me know what you think about it. But ain't nobody clicking that video,
yeah,
right? So I have to find something, because and no matter how well thought out, how well made, or how you know painstakingly detailed you can be in the video, it won't mean anything if you don't get anybody to click on it.
absolutely.
Right. And so you have to kind of entice someone to click on it. And that's unfortunate, it's what it is, right? And sometimes you are baited or encouraged in a lot of ways for the YouTube just to be kind of outlandish and just straight up baity. Like, here's the thing. He might just straight up be, and I'm not going to make a judgment on it. Like I can't, one, I didn't even see the video, and two, I don't know the guy, so I can't ask.
Yeah,
But like, he might have well just been like, here's my speculation. Um, and from what I'm being, what information that I have, that I'm allowed to talk about, and here's my speculation, and I'm going to put it out there. He may very well know that ain't the case, or he just might legitimately be throwing out, feelers to see what's going on.
yeah,
I don't know, but unfortunately, people are going to like click on it and they're going to be like, "What is this?" And then I think that's in long term, that's not going to pay dividends, in my opinion. But who
yeah,
knows?
yeah. But yeah, guys, Q1. I mean, by April, I think the game will be in early access. There's no the gameplay that I've seen, and then what everybody's talking about, the devs vibes, all that stuff. I don't think there's any delay or anything like that. And one of the MFG crews, I forgot, someone put it in this Discord, a screenshot of it, said that yeah, they're still on pace for that, confirmed.
So here's my
Yeah,
logic on why I think they'll still hit Q1. So if try to follow my train of thought here, because like I'm just extrapolating and I'm just, again, super speculation here. So in the question when I asked it, did PVE come initially as planned, or it was just purely off feedback? He confirmed it came later. right? And then they wasn't even part of the plan, so they came in later. Okay, so presume that PVE came in later. Technically speaking, they decided the resources required in order to make that happen was not that big of a deal. Didn't really compromise any of their plans. Okay. However, technically speaking, it would not be necessarily as easy to separate the progression from PVE to to the PvP servers.
Mhm.
Like in theory, basically you're doubling up the characters that you have to have for each person. Like I'm not a coder or anything like that, so I couldn't tell you exactly how hard or how difficult it is, but I'm gonna guess the resources required in order to separate them was enough to where if they dedicated time and resources to doing that, they would have to delay early access. Since they chose not to do that, my guess is they're still on for early access at
Yeah.
the on time.
Yeah.
That would be my guess.
That makes sense. I don't know why they would. That's just another topic, but I wish that I mean, if it's easy, great. I don't know either, but if you're going to make your game, launch your game, get your feedback after, or launch a playtest, get your feedback after. But I don't.
Basically, just put standard, no put PV in it, and just
Yeah, I
work
mean,
PV after the fact.
I feel like 80% from my understanding of the game, the scale of the map, the players on the map, the PvE focus. I feel like 80% of the people who were complaining about wanting a full PvE only server, those people probably ain't gonna say shit. They're gonna play the game and be like, oh, okay, this ain't that bad, you know. Now, at the end of a wipe cycle, right, or like the end of a wipe, I can see maybe the fun escalating a little bit, especially like the ground zero type of stuff. Like I can see that, but like the core gameplay and doing the missions and all that shit, like it's I don't see how it's gonna be such a strain to have PvEVP, 48 players, you know, whatever. I don't. I'm glad that they kind of listened to the community. I'm glad that they kind of made that switch. That's great that they're at least trying to listen. But if I were them, I'd have been like, hey, play the game first, and then let us know.
Right. But here's my thing on it, right? Is like the PVE aspect of it, right? I think is beneficial even if you're a PvPer. And I think I
Yeah.
talked about this in the interview a little bit in the sense that it basically removes from circulation the people who are uninterested in PvPing anyways. So it's kind of like, I'm not sure if you ever played Sea of Thieves, but like it's when they started introducing safer seas or whatever it's called, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
People were complaining about it, right? But they were complaining for different reasons. That's not what's going on here. They're complaining for different reasons. But like someone pointed out, when you're always complaining about when you're trying to PvP someone and they're just not interested in trying, I'm trying to do my quest and whatever it is, and how frustrating that can be. Like, yeah, that doesn't exist anymore. The people who are here, they're here because they want to fight.
Yep. That's
And so
it.
it's kind of like, that's actually beneficial by simply removing them from the equation. Your slots are available now for the people who actually want to fight.
Right.
And so my thing is as well as that, if you really think about it, there's no way they could know. Mad Finger Games, it says they could know the proportionality of the players that are coming in to play their game in
Yeah.
terms of like what they want as an experience. Do they want like a solo, campaign video type situation? They want PvE only co-op? Do they want the PvEVP, or do they want like a more heavy PvP? There's no way they could know that ratio.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, it doesn't really behoove them to make long-term decisions based on incomplete information like that. Just like, well, let's just play the game. We'll figure where everyone goes, and then at that point we can kind of make the tweaks along the way.
Yep. I think that would have been best. But again, if it was easy, whatever, cool. But another thing I wanted to ask you, it's like the idea of role playing. Having, if you're having a squad of 4, having 4 guys go in. Do you think as the game evolves, do you think that a distinct set of roles will be established in like a way to play the game, or do you think it's going to kind of be like Tarkov? Gear how you want. From why I'm saying this is because the certification system and how you can, it's not all grindy. It's not, hey, max everything out. It's kind of pick how you want to play. Do you think that, like I said, in the long term, or later into the wipe, it'll form those kind of distinct roles between players?
I think a lot of that's going to come down to, I think, inventory at the end of the day, because as bad as you may be as medic versus me, for example, right?
Mhm.
If we both have the same, capacity in terms of like medical to carry on us, If I cannot get to you, or if I'm too busy trying to fight to like, to get that done, you need to be able to do that. And it might be a moot point, the fact that I can do it faster than you.
Yeah.
So like, and in terms of like shots and whatnot, there's, you can say, well, I have less sway on my sniper rifle or something like that, or I have like a faster cycle on my bolt when I'm, doing bolt action or what have you, because I have marksman. At the end of the day, if you hit your shots, you hit your
Yeah,
shots.
it ain't gonna make a difference.
Um, and so like I'm not entirely sure. That's that's a meta question, and that stuff takes months to play out.
I think a lot of it'll be like cosmetic. They're going for the whole leveling with cosmetics, and that's your reward type stuff. So if you do these certifications and like there's a patch or there's something in your name or on your gear that you can represent it, like, hey, I'm a very good medic. This doesn't mean I'm better at it than you. It's just that I've completed these type of certifications for it. So
Like achievements.
yeah, like you can just tell, okay, this guy's good at doing this guy's good at doing that. Not necessarily that his character is better, like with better skills. It's just that he prioritizes that gameplay. Here's his patch, or here's his something that he's wearing to show that. So when we're sitting at the fob and we're like, man, we want to do something and try to find some people and maybe do like an 8-man mission. What do we need? And we can kind of show distinction between players. I think that'll be cool. But again, I don't want it to get overboard on like, hey, this dude's like,
Like a WoW type thing.
Yeah,
where
like he can heal faster.
Medic level 20, whatever.
He can carry this shit. Like, I don't want all that. I just want it to be like recognizing, hey, he likes to prioritize this. For this wipe, that's what he's become.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the more flexible they let us be, the easier it is for us to kind of play with one another.
Yeah,
include more people and like be less restrictive or exclusive with regards to like what kind of people we want to play with. And so that just ends up being a better gameplay experience. Now, you did touch on something in regards to like 4-man and 8-man and whatnot that I want to get into. So if it were me and we started running based on everything that we know, I would have, everybody here in this chat and go in solo, close squad, and we would all pick the same faction and just start cycling through the servers. And whoever can get into another server with somebody else that they know from the chat, boom, we stop right there. Everybody joins your squad. Suddenly we have one gigantic ass squad.
Yeah.
That, like, based off of what we know, that is perfectly plausible and doable. And so I can easily see a huge upside to doing it that way. Like, instead of just like, okay, we got a 4-man squad, we can do this, but like, dude, man, run a platoon, man. It's like,
yeah.
But then again, I'm a little old school, because when in my time, I wasn't a super echelon, I was just standard, infantry. Like, the smallest element I ever operated with was like 12 people. So it's kind of like, I'm used to having that many barrels around me.
Yeah. At least the servers they're not custom servers. So like when we log off, we'll have to kind of do the same. Like you said, everybody cycle servers, find each other, and then create it, rather than getting on the same server. And every time you're on, you're full of people that are all in the same faction doing the same thing. So I'm glad that, at least for now, no custom servers, nothing like that. So if it does happen, if it happens to us, like let's say it's happening to you, you can log off, your everything's saved account side, switch servers, you're fine. So, but it is a cool idea to, man, I would love to see like some missions or like people just dominating the map, 10 people, 16 people, whatever. That would be insane to fucking watch. That'd be cool.
Oh, I mean, that happens in Sea of Thieves already, and their system is way more primitive than what Grays on Warfare is looking like at this point. Like, are you familiar with the Alliance servers over in Sea of Thieves?
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, for the uninitiated in the chat, I'll just break it down just really quickly. Essentially, you have individuals who, in some cases, rent and pay for this kind of service. There's a limit on how many ships can be on Sea of Thieves in a given server. So the people who go into those slots, and then essentially when they rotate out, someone else can like opt into that slot. So they all basically agree, don't attack each other. So essentially, this whole server is just a full-on alliance, no PvP allowed server, right? And so, and this game's been out for what, how many years? Wow. And it's been kind of a thing for them. I can totally see something similar like that happening to Grays on Warfare, like just right off the rip too. Like, I could totally see that. But the thing is, it's already going to have a PvE server, so there's not really a need for that.
Yeah.
So I don't see that happening like that, but I see it happening in terms of like, okay, let's all basically get 16 people in one faction on a single server and then go boom. I think this was a comment that came in and with my when I made my PvP um, speculation video in terms of like, hey, this is my concerns, yada yada. Um, someone was saying that your big incentive to not do kill on sight is
Yep.
to is you're worried about them calling in reinforcements and all that. I'm just like, that's not really a big incentive because if I can like call in people, like this was the assumption they have some kind of radio system. We
Hmm.
won't have that for early access, but I can only presume that's something coming down the pipe. But like, let's just say this is effectively a more accurate version of that. I can confirm where basically all my teammates are. It means the moment I see someone that isn't on that map, I know that's an enemy and that's going to be kill on sight.
Yeah.
Right? Like we can talk about, oh, you can group with people and all that kind of stuff. Come on, let's be real. Anyone who's played these kind of games, ain't nobody grouping with nobody. It's going to be kill on sight.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah, I can see pros and
Right?
cons of both, but I mean, yeah, the mysticism of it and like the really the adrenaline of it, not knowing and trying to figure it out, and like not killing on sight, I think it would be probably better long term for the game.
Right. And I think it's one of those things where um, it's a good start. I think it's probably just one of the Alexis things. Like we'll have this there so that we can kind of like demystify a lot of it just for the sake of people learning it. Then eventually they'll have like the radio. So like I say, if you're carrying a radio with you, you can be like, hey, is there anyone, in grid square, yada, yada, yada. And that may or may not work completely well based on distance, things like that. And so you have to kind of like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Yeah.
And so that can be your like moment of like, hey, we're not immediately firing at them. That's because, we haven't confirmed they're friendlies or not.
Yep. Yeah, the wipe thing. I mean, look, with games and like retention in general of humanity nowadays, like seasons, splits, wipes, all that stuff makes sense, guys. There's a million games out there, so like the way I see it, even if the game doesn't necessarily call for it, uh, a game resetting brings player base, especially around like a big update, right? A game resetting brings the player base back because people ain't gonna play the same game all the time. But there, I mean, we have a million games to play, so people were they first said it, and this kind of started getting talked about. They were like, "Why does this game have wipes? I want to do the missions and keep my stuff." Well, like, yeah, I understand that, but at the same time, like, there is, no matter if you play 2 hours a day or 12 hours a day, you will get to a finish line of nothing to do. You will get off the cert. You'll quit the game. You'll go move on to something else. Wiping the game brings that retention back. So I'm for it. I'm for it for most games, seasons, wipes, anything like that. So
I'm actually of the opposite view, actually.
how so?
So like I understand fully what the
Mhm.
reasoning behind wipes are, but I think it's a band-aid for an economic issue that people are not, they're not able to solve. Because the real issue is gear saturation. Right? That's really what
Mhm.
it comes down to, and also just a lack of content in terms of like having a hamster wheel big enough for people to do things repeatedly and not basically get tired.
So
Because like
would you rather like it get to 150 missions, you're done, now all you really have to do is PvP, or reset your own character and just kind of wait for them to add more content? Would you rather that be the case?
no, that's the thing is like it's not a if or it's not a if this it's not a how do I put this? It's not a question of whether which one you want to have, right? It's about getting new players and retaining them. So those are two different problems. In terms of getting new players, like I've done enough sales to know if you're setting someone away because like, they say, oh, well, I'm getting into this game. How often do you see, well, you're coming in at a bad time, wait till wipe, right? It's pretty often that you'll see that in
Right.
a lot of these forums, right? Like it's not smart as a salesperson to send your customer away for any reason when you can have the sale now, right? And so in
Hmm.
this case, it's like if a player is excited to play your game now, any obstacle you have that could prevent them from having a good experience right now is potentially a sales loss, potentially a player you don't have, period. Not just later in the future, but just period. So like that has to be a problem that has to be solved in terms of allowing players to get in, when they want to get in.
Yeah.
If I can,
That's the
if I can jump
first
in real
problem.
quick right there too. Um, I've always found that interesting when they're like, now's not a good time, because as someone who got into Tarkov later and didn't consistently play because people said now's not a good time, I wish I hadn't listened and actually just, even if I'm going to get murked by people that are end game uh, equipment and level and all that like on me, at least I'm learning before the next wipe. That's always confused me why they would turn people away. Oh, wait 2-3 months for the next wipe to start. Why not get that experience before the wipe? So when you go
100%.
into the next wipe, you're better equipped to actually play, especially from a sales standpoint. That has always baffled me why people would say, oh, no, wait a couple more months and then come back. No one's going to do that. I mean, Caleb's talked about this plenty of times in this Discord and I think on YouTube as well. If we have such a TikTok brain, you send someone away for more than 30 days, I promise you they're not going to remember until maybe 5 months, a year down the road. They see a video and they're like, oh, yeah, I remember that kind of thing. So that's always baffled me.
Right, 100%. Like if we're gonna have wipes, we need to find a way to get people in the game when they want to get in the game, and that's a great way of putting it. Like I remember when I was playing Cycle Frontier, trying to get players to come in, like it's like, oh, the wipe's happening, but this is a perfect time for you to play because none of your stuff matters anymore. Like you just play the game, go hard, and just like learn the game. Go die a bunch, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Get that jitters out of the way. The other problem is the gear saturation, right? That's inevitably going to happen. More gears coming into the game than it is coming out. And so for me, you have to find a way to create a hamster wheel for end game players, the players who really want to go hard, that have all the gear and nothing to spend it on, nothing to do with it.
You
right?
think that would be more of a like a PvP route?
I think it's naturally inclined that way because of the nature of these kinds of games, right? So for like, hear me out on this one. Like my experience on this is limited because I never played Tarkov. I know enough about it to know close enough, but it's like, imagine this could apply to any extraction game, mind you. Imagine a extraction game that had like clan battles in which you got to like be a part of a larger unit, but played in battles that had like a higher escalation of conflict that naturally filtered gear out of circulation, either through the conflict itself or through donating it in ways to like improve your clan, improve your guild that way. So essentially it gave you the players that went hard, like, okay, I've maxed out everything. I'm just not, I'm tired of, running the norm. Cool. You don't have to run the norm. Go with all these other Chads, fight against other Chads, go really hard and be like, this is like the funnest part of the game for you because you've been chatting it the whole time. But now you're losing gear at a proportional rate that you're not throwing it back into the economy.
No, I completely agree with that. I mean, people I play Tarkov with, I've said it. Everybody, I mean, I'm seeing it in the chat now, like people hit a wall of that. Like, okay, the raids don't feel, the adrenaline's not pumping anymore. I have so much money I can do, it doesn't really matter anymore. So how can we, for the player that's going to be in there, like, let's say it doesn't wipe, how can he make his raids or his combat feel more, risky? Because I completely agree with everything you said with like new players coming in, right? New players coming in, they don't want to, like you said, you want to make the sell. So, but what about the people who already have the game? And like you said, the saturation, things like that. I think that's, man, I understand making the sell, to make the money, but their retention and keeping the concurrent players up and then content and things like that is equally as important to some degree of like, they have to be satisfied long term to tell their friends, hey man, this game is all, even if there's no wipes, hey man, this game is insane. Well, you're way ahead of me. How do I, well, it's okay, dude, because like we have all this stuff to do. And at least for Tarkov, and you said you haven't played it, but like there isn't anything, and I don't even complete all the quests. It's just like the quests get boring to me because the gear saturation, the money, the hideout, all that stuff that like
no fight for anymore.
Yeah, there's nothing to really get me amped up, to do it. So I always leave. And their numbers, when they do wipe, the numbers like do not lie. Like the influx of players that come, but I do agree with you to some degree, like because I've had it with my buddies that I've tried to introduce to Tarkov, like real life buddies. I'm like, hey man, you should get a PC, try this game, because they see my videos and they're like, dude, I want it. Like, what is that? Is that Warzone? Like, what? I'm like, no, dude, like it's this game, and they learn about it, and then they're like, well, I want to play when the game's fresh. Like, tell me when it resets again. And I kind of agree. I'm like, man, when it resets again, he's going to be doing something else. He might not even want to play the game anymore.
And the thing about it is, it's interesting about it is that those are two separate problems, right? But they're linked in that, you have to sustain your current community, but in a way that also welcomes new players into it. Because if you look at it from perspective of new players, it's like, hold on, I'm going to play this game. I'm going to work really hard and try to struggle my way through it. And I'm not going to some chat. I'll play an average of 1 hour a game, which is what the average gamer can play.
Yeah.
But I have a wallet nonetheless. So you need to get my attention. And so, but you're telling me after I worked however much long to maybe get halfway through this progress, I'm going to have to just lose it all because other guys, don't touch grass.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not it's not an enticing, you're already kind of starting off the sale with one of your hands tied behind your back.
Right.
And so for me, it's like the wipes are important, especially in early access, because you have to be able to introduce big things that will affect how people progress, and you need to see how that works in real time, right? So not having wipes in early access is essentially like having non-wipes and like betas and alphas, things like that. That's just you have to 100%,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you have to be allowed to test things in real time.
Yeah.
And 6 months is a ridiculously long amount of time, by the way. I don't think it's going to hold for 6 months. I think it's probably going to be a lot sooner than that, to be honest.
Yeah, they probably will have to. Yeah, I'm playing them an hour a day. Like Oka said, I mean,
That's the gaming average. If you look at the statistics, that's the gaming average.
Yeah, that's true, and I get it. I completely understand. That's the thing with Gray Zone. It's like the way I see it is I don't know if you've seen, but like they have the main quest. They said 150 quests, side quests, and that number kind of varies. But like, I don't know how long that would take someone that has no life, like can just no life it. I have no idea. They've made it seem like and it does seem hard. They made it seem like it's going to be hard. So my hope is, and just a little conversation that we heard and how Mara kind of hinted to us. This is just me. This is speculation, boys. How he worded
I can talk
it.
about some stuff that's not speculation. If you want,
how he worded it on like the end game, the end missions. It's almost like you're not going to be able to do it with 4 people. So like it's that hard. So like getting to through everything and then be like, okay, I'm done, wipe the game. I don't think it's going to be that. That's my hope. I don't think it's going to be that easy to where people aren't crying for wipe, 3 months into the session, That's my hope. Of course,
I would hope so. One thing that Rick did point out is that because of the nature of the game, that they're not going to handhold you through a lot of these quests. A mission may very well take you several hours to complete. So you may just straight up have like 3 hours to play. You may be able to knock out like, 5-6 missions, but one might actually take you 3 hours to complete because you
die at the end of it. So you can't.
Oh yeah, well yeah, that's always a possibility, mind you. But it's like, to me, I get that, but in a way, I kind of cringe a little bit because it's like, what if I only got the 1 hour to play with my buddies and that's the mission we land on? It's like, dude, like, what else am I doing? That's actually my major critique of Sea of Thieves, is that you can't get anything done within a reasonable amount of time. It's always going to be like 3-4 hour spurts that you're like, what did I really get done?
Yeah.
But there's that. One thing though, that this little bit of speculation that I gave a while back with one of my first Gray Zone Warfare videos. I wanted to get your take on this. So one piece of information that we got was that gear stays on the map for an hour after you die.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard this, right?
Yeah.
So there's nothing new, nothing surprising. I hope so, because this is pretty old information. So, and I speculated this on my video. I just want to hear your take on it. Basically, it's just that presumes a lot of things. First, it presumes that you don't get booted from the server when you die. So, okay, cool. You stay on the same server. Pretty self-explanatory. You can spawn, reacquire your gear, or get your gear, go back to an LZ, and go get your gear. Presumably, if you know where it's at. Okay, so that presumes then, let's say you're part of a 4-man squad and you engage another 4-man squad. Let's say you wipe 4-man squad B, squad A loses 2 guys. Now, in the time it takes for you, that helicopter that comes back out there, those 2 guys may or may not have been able to scoop up their buddy's gear, maybe loot everybody else's or whatever, but at the very least, it's going to take some time for the other 2 to get back to them. There's a high probability, I think, that those 2 squads will be playing cat and mouse for the better part of a couple hours, trying to track each other down, because the fact that they know it takes that long to get that stuff back. They know where the area they were when they had the firefight. So the PvP potential there could be pretty decent.
Yeah. Especially if we'll have to say this. I'll probably have to say this off of or out of this stage, but the potential with what's on your body, right? Let's say you and me are in a squad, we come up and we know that this squad is likely trying to do a mission that we're doing, so we fight them, we kill a couple of them, we go get their loot, but also some stuff that we need for the mission, right? That again, that's going to increase. Do what?
Springs, nuts, and bolts type stuff.
Yeah, like that's gonna increase the PvP. I completely agree. I don't, and I haven't seen this, so I'm guessing. I don't know how easy it will be to get back. You are gonna die, spawn back at your fob, and have to go through the whole process. I also don't know this. This is an idea. The little bird. Is it one little bird? Is it one little bird for your faction? If someone's using it, can you call it? You know what I'm saying? So if it's like being used by someone else, I'm gonna have to wait.
I'm not sure about that one. I think since we saw in the videos that the little bird doesn't just sit in the compound, it comes from somewhere else and like it picks you up. I presume that's part of like, I call him the dolly. It's kind of like not really, kind of like a fast travel WoW style thing where you just call it in and you get to go. Because I think that would be a lot, because you're looking at 4 different squads coming and going. Now, given how big that map is, I highly doubt it's going to be like a quick old cutscene where you just kind of cut the black and you arrive at the new spot, because at that point, it's like the helicopter would have to disappear at some point for somebody's screen.
Yeah.
Doesn't make a lot of sense. So potentially, you're looking at a potential like, 15-minute helicopter ride?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which, okay, that's a thing. But then that's also the ride back. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe not for the helicopter itself, but like for anyone exfilling. So if that's only like one helicopter, dude, man, like you might be waiting like an hour before that helicopter shows up, which is realistic, but it's still a game. Come on now.
Yeah. I don't know.
One thing Caleb and I have talked about too, for that exact example that Caleb just gave of, we're going to do a mission, we find another 4-man squad, we kill them, one of our guys dies, right? You go loot them, you're trying to protect your buddy from getting back to his thing. What if you find enough stuff on those people that now you're making that decision of, man, do we still try and actually get this mission done, or is it best for all of us to just reset? Buddy's dead, let's all, we'll take Little Bird back to base, meet up there, come back, try and get his stuff, and actually still go do the mission. But am I going to have to drop stuff that I picked up to actually continue the mission? Am I too heavy now that if I keep trying to go, I don't have the stamina, or it's going to affect trying to kill the AI, because they've talked about AI is going to be lethal. It's not just a pushover type thing, even the easiest ones. Like that every move matters that they keep pushing really comes back into play of what are you going to do? You choose to loot them. Is it worth risking all that gear to go in and die to an AI where now no one gets the gear? Or are you going to reset, come back?
I think so go ahead.
You should also add into that equation. Yeah, you're holding your buddy's equipment. They have an hour to get back to it, but so the other guys that you just killed, they can also come back and get their gear.
Exactly. I think the question that you brought up, Amango, that's the fundamental thing that makes extracts great. I think if they do it right and the gear is valuable enough, that's a real question to be asked, right? And that's the conflict that you're going to come across that makes the game really good, because you're going to have those decisions to make. It's like, oh man, what do I do? And that's the real tension that gets built up in the back of your neck. You're like, man, do I go for it? Do I get greedy? I don't know. And that's kind of like why I like extraction shooters, for that reason. It kind of builds that tension up a little bit. And the wrong way to go about it is to make gear not valuable, right? Is because that no longer becomes a question. That question is no longer there. The tension's kind of gone too, which case, well, you already know what the answer is going to be, in which case there's no stress over the question.
Hayes, I don't know about that. I seriously don't. Yeah, that's the thing, like with like mission objectives, right? Like items. If you die and you still have the mission accepted, can you fly back and pick it up again? Does everything still count? Like, will that make it, hey man, I need to go back. I don't want to have to try to go in there and get it again. It's in the field. It's somewhere, in a safe spot. I want to go back so I can get, this laptop or whatever I'm trying to get for my mission. I wonder if the mission will reset and you have to wait for it. Because you got to think of this too. And they haven't said this. I'm wondering if it's different timers. I'm assuming it's all one timer. But doors, loot, mission objectives, bosses, different stuff like that, are they all on an hour timer? You know, like is everything on an hour timer, or some things 2 or 3 hours? You know, like if there's
That's
like
a
a
good
high
question.
tier boss, like, you know, does he spawn every hour? Is it 3 hours? You know, if we go there
Yeah,
and we
there
see
are.
that
Yeah,
he's dead, like, is it worth it to even wait, or like, you know, those types of questions?
yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a really good question. I think it's likely to be the same kind of like wipe, you know, system where it's like an hour or whatever. Like, because it wouldn't make any sense to be like, all right, I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna do my thing. We got the whole POI knocked out. We got the mission done, and for whatever reason, we just get randomly picked off by a dude or something like that. But like our mission, yeah, it can even be a player, or whatever it is. But your mission item's still on your body,
Right.
and he doesn't need it. He leaves it there. He moves on. You know, lives his life. You know, grows old, gets kids, all that kind of good jazz. But you come back and you look for your body, and sure enough, there's the mission item. Like, it makes a whole lot less sense to come back and it not be there within that time frame, and you have to do the whole mission over again, as opposed to you coming back, grabbing the weapon, and just evacing.
Yeah. I think it'll be there.
So yeah, I think that's just I always try to err on the side of like common sense, you know, uh, structural stuff. Now I have been wrong. In my last PvP video, I did assume that progression would not be shared. But me personally, I've already talked about like why I think that's the case. So that's the most logical reason I think it's going to be the case. And so I'm still holding out that it will not be a thing sometime after early access is released.
Yeah, I hope so. So yeah, what else did you have? That's kind of all the things I think I wanted to touch on.
Here's another thing as well, is that just to put it out there, like just like they couldn't know what proportion of their players are in terms of PvE or PvP, things like that. They probably also don't know what level of PvP interactions players are going to have. Like, this isn't like Tarkov or Hunt or any other, you know, extraction shooters that I've tested before, other than Cycle. Cycle is the Cycle Frontier is the only game that's had persistent servers. So this will be the next game that to do it. And so that throws in so many variables about how often players interact with one another that it's so hard to quantify. So in a lot of ways, you know, they might be going, well, this may be too much PvP, maybe it's not enough PvP. They don't know anymore in a lot of ways any more than we do, because like devs can test it. I'm sure they have 48 devs they can hop into a game and test it. But they're not going to know until gamers of entirely different variety hop in there and they start acting under their own volition. And they'll figure out, oh yeah, this spot gets a lot of PvP. This part doesn't get a lot of PvP and all that kind of jazz.
Yeah.
And to be honest, anyone who's played an extraction game knows, well, most of them at least this was the case in the Cycle with persistent servers. There were places that you went to if you wanted PvP. You know full well you can go to this area, you're probably going to run into other players.
Mm-hmm. I think, man, and I didn't they say that they're gonna have something like that, like later in the game, like points of interest for PvP, or no?
I don't think they did, and that was kind of part of my question that I asked them in terms of like, based on the information we had, it looks like late game progression missions were going to be at the center of the map, and it's looking like basically the factions would eventually work their way towards the center of the map, and that's basically we're going to have like the PvP interactions.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gecko's giving me some Crescent Falls flashbacks right now.
Oh yeah. Crescent Falls, what you call it? Was it offices? Starport offices?
Yeah,
and like,
offices, the 6. Nah, dude, stop it.
For sure, man. For sure. And so I think they did say, he did say, you know, that was the case in terms of like, you know, hey, people work their way towards the center and whatnot. But I think that's going to happen regardless. There are going to be certain areas that are going to be like naturally going to be conflict zones because of how the missions are set up. And that will inadvertently become like the community's idea of like, okay, if you want PvP, you basically go here. Like the odds of you running to players here is very, very high. And then there's also another downside to having PvE only servers, because if that's the case, now imagine this. You know you got missions coming up in this area, and you know damn well everyone there is going to be there because they're trying to PvP. But you're just trying to get that mission knocked out. That's what you're going to do. You're going to go to the PvE server, you're going to knock that mission out and come right back. I think that's one of the biggest downsides to having PvE progression being shared. Like just like that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You get to basically just cheat your way out of it.
Yep. A lot of people are worried about that. We'll just see how it's implemented.
Oh, for sure. Like, there are some plus sides though. There's some very big plus sides to that. right? And I thought about this. I'm like, okay, what's the biggest upside to this one if they wanted to do it on purpose instead of what I, projected why they're doing it.
Mm.
The biggest upsides I can think of is that I have players, I have friends that I know for a fact will be playing this game precisely because it has PvE only.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure you do too. Everyone here in this chat probably knows at least one or two other players who are going to do that. Those are all players buying the game, by the way. Those are all players supporting the game and they want to play. So yay for us too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're also going to be on the fence in terms of PvP. Like, yeah, I'm more like, I don't want to play this game. I'm going to ease into a PvE. And because I have that option, and now because the progression shared, I don't have to worry about resetting everything. I'll just move into PvP, right? So it allows that buffer to occur. Now, do I agree as to, that being the case? Not so much. I feel like if they're going to do it that way, if they want to do it that way, I feel like there should be like a cap. Like, hey, once you get to this level, there's no going back. You have to finish it out in PvE, right? And that kind of lets players go, hey, and let them know ahead of time.
I might be beating a dead horse here, but Show probably agrees with that. Is the takeaway from sharing progression is taking away from their vision of high stakes, of being a high stakes game.
100%.
It's taking away that vision that they originally gave us. I don't it's like I said earlier in the other Discord. I don't even know, and I've done the research. I don't recall somebody even asking for the progression to be shared. I don't recall a Reddit post of a lot of people demanding or asking, hey, can you please do a shared progression or make it secret? I don't know where they have gotten this. The community asked for this type of deal.
Right. And that's why I still think firmly my original rationale as to why it's occurring is probably the most plausible, is that time and money. It's just missing the early access, because like if you think about it, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, right? So like they announced, hey, we're gonna go ahead and miss our quarter one early access. We're gonna go to quarter two because we want to separate progression from PvE. What's your response gonna be? Likely, hey, just run with it. You can change it afterwards. I'd be willing to bet 90% of people here are gonna say that.
Thank fucking God would be my answer.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I mean, to be honest, I think everybody's okay. Well, hold on. I say everybody because GGW chat every single day has the same fight. But ultimately, we're all gonna be fine with it in the early stages.
Right.
Once the inevitable realization that a lot of people are taking advantage of being able to just be easy on the PvE side and then take all the loot that they want to exclusively kill other players in the PvP servers is probably the issue that we'll run into.
Here's the thing, and I think that's probably making a mountain out of a molehill, but the molehill is still really big too. Right? It's like people are focusing on that because they're focusing on how it affects them in real terms, right? But it's actually much more sinister than that if you really think about it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's like you nailed it on the head, where it regards to it takes the tension away. Right, because I say I'm a PvP player, and I know I'm not gonna go to PvE and do this. I am a man of the people. I have integrity, and I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna spoil the game for myself and do that. But the fact that I know I can, right, takes the tension away a bit. And to top it off, let's say it plays out. I am super chat. I am uber chat. I kill every single PvEer that runs across my across my screen, including every other PvPer. You're just saturating the gear that much faster.
Yeah.
Right. So like even if you in no way benefit from the PvE server by playing it, you're going to benefit by its existence, by the fact that they're shared.
Right. You're saturating the market even further if you didn't have it shared.
Right. And as we discussed before, that's a big part of this game, of this genre of games. That's one of the biggest problems they have. Anyways, we don't need to exacerbate that problem. And so I firmly believe it will probably change very quickly after early access has been released and everything's stabilized. Be one of the first things that'll get changed. So we cut it out shortly after that. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much for your time. If you have anything to add or suggestions for possible future chats like this, leave it down in the comments. Thank you for watching, and good hunting.